Islam 6 years, and as Brother Akbar Muhammad was standing there talking, the meeting that was organized in St. Albans, at the St. Albans Theater on that Thanksgiving evening, I believe that I went to Malcolm and asked him if he would come and speak and introduce Herman to him, and Malcolm knew him from the Rochdale demonstration. So it was a piece of history that I was just listening and walking in Attica. And I'm going to give you a little background because I was outside looking in. We had just finished with Old Queens, where the brothers had seized Old Queens, namely the Panther brothers. And they asked for Minister Farrakhan to come in and see if he could negotiate a deal so that they could get better treatment, number one, and then be released in the public, because they knew that those police officers will smile and say, we'll do this and that, but when those doors are closed, they'll go right back to their savage selves. So we negotiated, and I'll never forget the Lumumba Shakur, may God bless him. He died tragically over some madness in New Orleans. And we kind of came up together. He was selling the Panther papers, I was selling Muhammad Speaks. And we always had our political clashes and talked about our internal contradictions. But we were brothers because we were in a struggle together. So we went to Queens, we negotiated things, the police said, okay, we'll free him in the public, you know, there will be no harassment and so forth. And they took him through somewhere, this is Old Queens now, up on a roof, and there was a media person who had snuck up on the roof and had a camera. And when the brothers came out, those dogs had bats, and they beat them brothers. Some of you may remember. If anybody in the Over the Hill gang, you may remember what happened that day. And then this man filmed it, a black reporter. He caught hell, but we saw them beat them brothers down. And then, you know, then Attica breaks out. And it was like a movement in America. And if you look at the history of Attica, a prison built to hold 1,200 inmates. It was nearly double that amount in there. And the brothers talked about the rats and the roaches and one roll of toilet paper for a month and all the harassment that went with it. And if you notice, if you study this, most of the correctional officers upstate New York, where they build these prisons in these small communities to create jobs for the unemployed, were ruled white Americans. It's all over this country. They'll bring in some Negroes and, you know, in order to make it look like it's an integrated staff, but it's mainly white Americans from those rural areas. And if you could go to their shrinks, most of them have domestic problems. Most of them have problems in their homes because of what's going on behind the prison wall. Now I want to take a minute, I only have a few minutes, to go somewhere with this. First of all, if there's going to be a movement, we got to produce babies. See, we're getting older. How many young people? How many people in this audience under 21? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Under 21. Brother, you're not going to get away with that. If you're under 21, I'm 17. Okay? Anyone in here under 21 years old? I got one. Somebody brought their child. I got two over here. They brought them to the meeting. But let me say this, in the movement, if there's going to be a conscious movement, if there's going to be a quality new cadre, we must produce young people. And you can't produce them in a vacuum. You can't say there's a meeting, but Johnny's not interested in that. Lil Kwame don't want to go to that. You got to find a way that makes it attractive to bring them, so we can bring them to a level of consciousness. Otherwise, when we get older, and Barbara Ferguson, I thank God for you because you're an example. I don't become battle fatigued. Most of us get worn out, especially dealing with Negroes. Negroes will make you ball, break up. They'll send you back to a bottle to get a drink. So you suffer from battle fatigue and you really give up the struggle. Let me go get a job in corporate America. Let me get married and move, you know, maybe not to North Carolina, but somewhere else. And leave the Negroes alone. But there are men and women who want to hold that struggle and keep it going. They don't give up. They stay on the firing line. Pan-Africa, you're an example. You as fiery and infinite African as but we have to bring a level of consciousness to the younger generation. How do you get to them? Look at the music that gets to them. How do you make them aware? How do you stimulate their interest? One thing is that you gotta be mentors who can tell war stories. I went to Guyana in 1976. I'm standing at the airport, and I look around. I said, "Man, that looks like Herman Ferguson." I don't even know if you remember this. And I said, I said, "Herman," and he didn't move. Then he turned. He said, "Major Adams." And so then I walked over to him, and they started talking. But the thing that I learned, whether you agreed with Burnham or not, he started something with Tom Feelings, an artist who lived down there with him. And what Burnham had the audacity to do, to say, we have to tell the story of Guyana. I just got back from Guyana. The CIA told him I was a drug dealer and a terrorist, and the Guyanese arrested me. So I just issued a lawsuit against Barack Jaga, the president of Guyana, who's an Indian, for $15 million. And he's either going to crap or get up off the pot. If the CIA told him, then he's going to have to prove that. But anyway, so I'm in Guyana. In those days that I spent there, I learned a lot. I was like a sponge. Now, I'm blessed. I've been to 141 countries in the world. I've been to 41 African nations. But when I saw that booklet that he produced for young people to tell the story of Guyana, because Burnham knew that there was a problem there. A problem when slavery was over, the indentured servants came. They got Portuguese, Chinese, and the Indian, mostly the Indians. But he had the job of trying to weld the society together. So he produced a booklet. It's like what we used to call, when I was young, the funny books or comic